said, this was a presentation which came out of an article which came out of an example essay. Many years ago, I did a course on the matrix. I wrote an example essay for my students. That got recycled and turned into an article for Pop Culture Zine called Molly. And then later on, we reworked it again and it became this presentation. And this is okay. In academia, plagiarism is really bad, but plagiarism yourself is fun. It's okay to recycle stuff from earlier articles and so on. Everybody does it. So, title guns, lots of guns, again referring to this famous scene in the Matrix. It's about violence in the Matrix. The Matrix is a very violent film, which is not unusual. Plenty of films are violent. We saw a Gamer that was even more violent. But it did produce some reaction at the time. There were even some cases where murderers claimed that they were influenced by the Matrix. There was a guy who killed his landlady because he thought, what he said, he thought he was in the Matrix and that she was an agent, so she had to kill him, and you're all agents, and I'm getting out of here, and so on. Probably he was either crazy or pretending to be crazy, so he would get the death penalty. I don't know. Now, obviously, this kind of thing is nonsense. We talked before about the Pokemon fallacy, where the kid jumps out the window thinking he's Pikachu. So I'm not going to talk about the effect of the violence of the Matrix. What I'm going to talk about is why it is there and what it means. Now, obviously, the main reason why it's there is that it is an action film. It's a very philosophical film, as we think, but it is also an action film, and you can't have an action film without killing people. But they also seem to be saying something with the violence in the film. Everything in the Matrix is about reality and virtuality. What is real, what is a copy? So we would expect that the violence in the Matrix is also a virtual violence in two ways. One is that it's happening in a virtual world, but also it's not even realistic violence in that virtual world. It's like a copy of a violence. This brings us back to our friend Baudrillard, which you know was mentioned in the last presentation. You remember Baudrillard from Simulation and Simulacra? Remember Neil has that copy of the book, which is followed out, ironically. Remember we have those 4 stages of simulation. So the first one is an image of a real thing, and it actually reflects the real thing. So I take a photograph of tuna, everybody can look at it and say, oh, that's tuna. It then progresses through images which distort it. So, for example, tuna was his photograph on Facebook, but he photoshops it to make himself look better. That will be the second stage. Then we get to images which mask the absence of something, so an image of something that no longer exists, or images which even take over from reality. And Baudrillard came up with this idea of hyper-reality. Something which it isn't entirely real and it isn't entirely virtual either. It's an image which has more perceived reality than the real thing. So, an example of hyper-reality that Baudrillard gives is Disneyland. Baudrillard famously claims Disneyland is the real America. Which is weird because everything in Disneyland is fake. But in a way it's more real than reality because more children have seen Mickey Mouse than have seen an actual mouse. For them, if you say mouse, you think Mickey Mouse. So obviously it's not real in the sense of being physically real. It's real in the sense of being personally meaningful. So the Matrix is all about hyper-reality because the Matrix itself is something that is more real than the real world to the people who are in it. It's also Baudrillard's third stage of simulation, something which hides the absence of a real thing. The world which the Matrix simulates is a world that ceased to exist several centuries before the film takes place. So that's the virtuality reality axis. We also have the martial arts and the weapons axis. You have two kinds of violence in the Matrix. One is martial arts. People beating each other up, basically. And the other, you have the weapon side, the lots of guns side. So we have guns, we have helicopter gunships, we have bombs as well at some point. And I think these are two different strands of the film, two different themes in the film. The martial arts violence is different from the weapons violence. They are both, in a way, hyper-real violence, but they seem to be saying different things. So, looking at the martial arts side first, there's this famous scene. Neo wakes up, says, "I know Kung Fu." It's actually the first time in the film that he looks happy. Neo spends most of the film going around with this kind of like rather confused, unhappy expression on his face, which is not surprising because he is totally confused. Then he gets into the simulation, they feed him full of all these different martial arts, and he wakes up, "I know Kung Fu." As I said when we were watching it, wouldn't it be great if education really was like that and just loaded in a program? But the scene we have where Neo fights Morpheus, this is actually from the second film, but it's very, very similar. Why do you think that scene is there? What do you think they're trying to say with this scene?
Can you repeat?
Why do you think this scene is there? What is the importance of this scene? What are they trying to say with the scene when Neo fights Morpheus? And later in the second film when he fights Sarah, in a very similar scene. We did talk about this a little bit last week. Fair enough, what do you think? What's the point of the scene? What's the message of the scene?
What's the message of this scene?
Yeah, the scene when Neo fights Morpheus, or this scene in the second book, you know, the scene where he fights Sarah. Why do we have these really long, kind of classic martial arts scenes? I mean, they even have like an oriental setting for it. Why?
You have to fight to deserve something, maybe. Because in that scene, Saphir pushed him to prove himself that he is near. So that's why they are fighting in that scene. So
I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, it's true. In both scenes, they have to prove something. And in this particular scene, yeah, he has to prove that he's the one. Because Sarah says, "You never know a man until you fall him." In the first one, he has to prove to Morpheus that he has the potential to be the one. Yeah, imagine.
and also to impress the audience.
Yeah, of course. How in particular?
With that special techniques, fight scenes.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it, of course, it is just entertainment.
I think in this scene, he is believe that he is the one, and he wins this time. When he fighting Morpheus,
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't have faith in himself.
but this time he believes that he is the one.
And actually, Seraph is harder to beat than Morpheus, because Seraph is a program. Although he's on the good side, he's actually just the same as the agents. So he is an incredibly powerful opponent. There's something I hadn't thought about that just occurred to me now. I remember reading an academic paper about Kill Bill, which you've seen. Again, one of my favorite private films. But they talk about a traditional martial arts films where the hero has to go through all these ordeals. The hero has to suffer and fight and get beaten up in order to show that he deserves to be the hero, which is very like what you guys were saying. Yeah? So, Neo has to get beaten up by Morpheus before he can get up and later fight Agent Smith. Yeah? So they call it, in the Chinese martial arts tradition, they call it the art, like showing you how a strong art is what it's all about. So that's one aspect that I hadn't actually thought about, but I agree is very true. The other thing is what we talked about very briefly when we were this idea of freeing your mind. Martial arts are a good example of this because, to a large extent, martial arts success does depend on your will, on your courage, your confidence, and as Morphy said, don't think you can, know you can. You may remember, I gave the example of breaking bits of wood. Most people can't break planks of wood because they think they can't break them. You're frightened that you're going to hurt your hand, so you don't hit it hard enough, so you hurt your hand. If you just imagine in your mind that your hand has gone through it, then it will. Obviously, there are physical limits to martial arts in the real world. In the Matrix, of course, there are no limits. And that is what Morpheus is trying to show you. Martial arts, therefore, are a good way of showing this idea, freeing your mind in order to do things that you couldn't do before. And I think this is actually one of the things that people really liked about the film. I remember coming out of The Matrix the first time I watched it. It was in 1998, was it? 1999. I came out of the film thinking, wow, I can do anything. I thought I couldn't. If I walked into a box, the box would still kill me. But it does give you that feeling that you can then kind of transfer not to anything in life, but to more manageable things. Yeah,
I have one more question. Why only male can do that? I mean, why not other people can do that?
You're the chosen one.
Yeah, I mean, there is always this thing which you get it in fantasy films as well. There's always like some guy who's the chosen one. Yeah.
He's Jesus of Matrix.
Sorry?
He's the Jesus of Matrix.
He is, yeah. I mean, like the guy said at the beginning, you're my Jesus, man, my own personal savior. Something like that. My own personal Jesus Christ. Yeah. I mean, there's full of references that. This idea of a chosen one, I mean, you get it most obviously in Christianity with Jesus, but it's common all the way through myths, legends. There's some guy who is prophesied. Again, fantasy legend of the Seeker. I don't know if you guys remember that. The guy, he's the chosen one. He has the sword of truth. No particular reason. He doesn't have to sit an exam to find out who's the chosen one. He just is the chosen one. Usually some wise old guy says, oh yeah, he is the chosen one. And Neo says, oh no guys, I'm not the chosen one. Although Neo actually does do that. He goes to the oracle, but nobody believes that he's not the chosen one. You can't retire from him. Yeah, that's what you're going to say.
And who is white-haired guy and Kahin?
Oh, oracle?
Yes, or who are they? And where are they living actually? And they're not. They're supposed to be.
The white-haired guy, you mean the architect?
Yes, architect.
Right, okay. The architect and the oracle, they are two of the oldest programs in the Matrix. The architect is...
You said Matrix has been programmed by machines.
Yeah, they are machines, they're programs.
They are machines.
Yeah.
The architect is the artist. Program. So why they are not working for machines?
Well, the architect is, I mean, the oracle, she's like a rebel program, like Sarah. Because in the Matrix, artificial intelligence starts as one singular intelligence, but it says it reproduces itself to create lots and lots of different intelligences. One of these was the architect who created the Matrix. And this again is a religious notion, but it's not standard Christianity, it's Gnosticism, which is a kind of heretical form of Christianity, where they believed that the God of the Old Testament was actually not the real God, he was this kind of evil half-God who created the world, and the architect is like that. The oracle, she claims she was set up to balance them, or to create imbalance. She says the architect's function is to balance the equations. My function is to unbalance them. So she's like a kind of counterforce to the architect. And again, she's a figure from Gnostic mythology. The Gnostics believed in a spirit called Sophia, which means wisdom. And it's Sophia who helps people escape from this world that is controlled by the architecture that they call out that way. Anyway, I'm getting away from violence into mythology, which is fine, but I want to return to this kung fu thing, because it also illustrates this idea of simulation of reality. If we look at martial arts in the real world as well as in films, you see a kind of progression. Yeah. So you have, at the beginning, people really fighting each other. That's how martial arts started. Yeah. They responded to people's need to defend themselves, to fighting wars, particularly when they'd lost their weapons, and so on. So you have a progression from real fighting to real martial arts. But there's already a difference then between real martial arts and real fighting. Real fighting does not look much like martial arts, even like real martial arts. There are movements that you practice in martial arts which you would never actually do in a real fight. For example, there's this thing that Morpheus does in the fight with Neo. This is actually moving from Tai Chi. It's part of the Tai Chi form. So you end up going like that and then to another like that. Okay, it's real martial arts, but as my Tai Chi teacher said to me years ago, if you found yourself in this position in a fight, you'd be doing something very stupid. In fact, it's built up a lot of different moves like that. You would never actually have them all together. So there's already a difference between reality and image. Yeah? But you could say in a way that real martial arts is like Baudrillard's first stage, where the image tries to be faithful to reality. It's not trying to distort reality, it's just different from reality, but it points to that reality. Somebody who knew about martial arts could guess. And that my teacher made me do this. He showed me the image and he said, okay, what would this be in real life? I said, okay, yeah, well, this could be hitting somebody like on the temple like this could be hitting like this, and so on. Okay. From real martial arts, we move to martial arts films. I divided into first generation and second generation. So the first generation kung fu films, things like Enter the Dragon, Bruce Lee films, early Van Damme films. Yeah. So particularly films from the 1970s, the kind of classic era of kung fu films. They're one step removed. They're not referring to real fighting now, but they are still referring to real martial arts. Bruce Lee was not only a great actor, he was also a very good martial artist. He trained in Wing Chun, he invented his own style called Jeet Kune Do. But Bruce Lee said, I mean, this is not what I do in my films. What I do for real fighting is nothing like what I do in my films. What I do in my films is to have fun, to look good, to be exciting. Okay? Then the second generation kung fu films are films like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Anybody seen that film? Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon? It's Aged Another Capcom? Yeah. Well, what did you think about that film? What did you think about the fighting in the film?
No, I didn't watch.
Oh, you just said that. Nobody watched it? I recommend that you watch it. It's a completely over-the-top kung fu film. You see people kind of running up the sides of buildings, walking on water, balancing while fighting on a bamboo branch. They do things which are absolutely impossible. But it kind of works in the film, because the film has gone from being a film about martial arts to a film about kung fu films. Lots of things in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon refer to a whole tradition of Chinese kung fu film making, where it's very much mixed up with historical films and fantasies. So it's okay for somebody to walk on water in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, because we don't expect it to reflect real fighting or even real martial arts. It's become a story in itself. Yeah? We don't say, oh, well, that's stupid, nobody can walk on water. In the same way that when we watch The Lord of the Rings, we don't say, oh, that's stupid, get up and never make fire come out of this, stuff like that. And of course, it's magic. Now, how does this fit in with hyper-reality? I think that's what has happened with martial arts is that somewhere along this route, we've gone into hyper-reality, particularly around about here. Yeah. A lot of people actually think that real fighting, if you know Kung Fu, is like it is in films like this. Okay? So this is the image of this, but this isn't actually real. Yeah? It's hyper real. Again, many years ago, I helped to teach a self-defense class for the kids at Bob's campus. One of the problems we had was that they thought real fighting was going to be like Kung Fu films, and it's not. Yeah? If you try and fight in a real fight like they do in The Matrix or actually fight Hidden Dragon, or even in Enter the Dragon, yeah, you're going to end up looking stupid and probably getting beaten up as well. Okay, so this means that the violence in the Matrix films, again, it's not real violence, it's not even unreal violence, it's hyper-real violence. It's only there for what it represents. Yeah? And what it represents, as we've seen, is basically the power of the mind to make yourself do things. It even affected the actors in the film. In the second film, Carrie Ann Moss, who plays Trinity, said she was absolutely terrified when she was doing that long car chase, you know, when she was riding the motorbike. And she did most of that herself. Yeah, there were a few things that was done by stuff, but mainly she did it herself. And she said basically it was the confidence that she got from the ideas in the film that made her convince herself that she could do it. Again, like we were talking about performative speech acts at the beginning of the first film, Get Up Trinity. Yeah? She was always doing things like that. But she said, yeah, a lot of points I really thought I was going to die making this film. Okay. Moving on to the other strand, the gun side of it. This is a bit more controversial, a bit more problematic. So while the martial arts thing is all about your own individual power, this is more about political power. Yeah? Guns are an essentially political creation. As Chen Mao said, political power comes out of the power of the gun. So it can represent the power of the state, or it can represent revolutionary power. Yeah? Often you have, again, a classic Maoist thing, where they're actually taking their guns from the agents of the state. Yeah? There are a couple of scenes where, for example, Trinity in the hotel lobby scene, she takes the machine gun out of the guy's hands, turns it around and shoots him with him. That in a way is a symbol of revolutionary violence. Again, when they take the helicopter, yeah, the only way they can free Morpheus is by taking over the helicopter, which is actually there guarding him. This all sounds very nice, but there is kind of dark side to this, I think, which I call revolutionary elitism. Have a look at this quotation. This is from Morpheus. It's in the scene when they're not in the Matrix yet. They're in what they call a construct, a simulation of the Matrix. So it's a kind of double simulation. Neo looks at the woman in red, who turns into an agent. This is what Morpheus says afterwards. The Matrix is a system, Neo, and that system is our enemy. When you look around, what do you see? Businessmen, lawyers, students, people. Everywhere you look, there are people. Somewhere else, somewhere in the future, they may be human beings. But here, these people are a part of the system. That makes every one of them our enemy. And again, as he says, you are either with us or you are with them. Hey, does anybody find anything a bit worrying about this? What is the problem with this? It sounds really good. When you watch the film for the first time, you think, oh yeah, everybody's against this. We've got to be careful. But what's the worrying side about this?
What kind of problem? About me?
Yeah, I mean, politically. What kind of political attitude is this showing? It's not quite anarchist. I'd say it was Leninist strong than anarchist. But when you said anarchist, I mean, why is it?
They thought everybody except themselves are enemies.
They're against system.
Yeah, well, that side of it's fine. I mean, they're supposed to be against the system because it's a bad system. It's the way they're against the system that I find worrying.
Because it might be fake.
I'm happy about that. Yeah, of course. If you're in the Matrix, you can't trust anything anyway.
And then we do by machines.
Well, come to think of it, I mean, if you look at what we find out in the second machine, Neo's whole rebellion is actually programmed by the architect. With every cycle of the Matrix, the one comes at the end, and his job, in a way, is to kind of reboot the Matrix. So, of course, you're going around thinking, oh, all these people are being manipulated by the system, but you're also being manipulated by the system. And again, this is something that has been talked about by various Marxist philosophers. The way that a climate system can actually include rebellion. Yeah, so the people who think they're rebelling are actually part of the system that they are rebelling against. But think about this elitism idea. What's the problematic point here? Well, don't you think it's worrying to regard everybody you see as less than human? That's what he's saying. Somewhere else, somewhere in the future, they may be human beings. I find that really worrying. I mean, all these people in the Matrix, they're actually like ordinary people like you.
Yeah, right. If you kill someone in the Matrix, they will be killed and they will be dead.
Yeah.
In real life.
Uh-huh.
So it's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, it basically makes you callous. It makes you stop worrying about other people suffering. Because, again, the Matrix is only a conceptual hallucination. It's a simulation. Yeah? But the pain people feel is real pain. Yeah? You couldn't say to somebody, for example, I don't know, if Narsa said, I have a headache. Yeah? I couldn't say to her, no, you don't really have a headache. It doesn't really hurt. Yeah. I can tell her she's lying. I can say, oh, you don't really have a headache. You're just trying to kid me. But I can't tell her that she's not feeling this pain. Yeah? Pain is real, whether it's simulated pain or physical pain. It's still pain. Yeah? So when you hurt somebody in the Matrix, they still feel real pain. When somebody loves somebody in the Matrix, I think they still feel real love. This is something that will come up in our last presentation, whether things in the Matrix are really that different from things in the real world. But it also parallels something in the real world. I have seen this attitude, like those who are not with us are against us. Okay, that's a quotation from Lenin. Yeah. I've seen this attitude in revolutionary groups, both on the right and the left. Okay. It's basically other people don't matter because they have false consciousness. They are slaves of the system. We are here to set them free, and if we have to kill a few of them to do it, well, as Lenin said, you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. Yeah. That's an attitude I find quite dangerous. Just like remember in Gamer, when he's going to rescue his wife, and she's in that kind of like weird scene in the game society The guy, she's just about to have sex with some guy. Our hero comes in, picks up the guy, breaks his back, throws him on the floor. I was like, wait, this is a guy just like your wife. Your wife and him are actually doing the same job. They are both actors in society. Yeah? You haven't broken the back of the pervert who is controlling this guy, you've broken the back of an innocent actor. And it doesn't seem to bother him at all. So that again is something that I find a worrying attitude in films like this. So again, you can interpret the film in different ways. On the whole, I think this is a minor part of the film. I think most of the message is positive, but you can also interpret it like this. This is a satirical piece in the Washington Times. You say, well, this is basically what teenagers understand by the Matrix. You can't trust anyone but your online friends. Maybe you really will save the world. Computer games are more real than what adults who are zombies or evil mechanical brain controllers for real life. And of course, it would be cool to have a girlfriend like Trinity, who is a butt-kicking video game character and doesn't care about dumb girl stuff. Okay, this is not what I take away from the Matrix, but it just shows the film can be interpreted in different ways. I think I should include, that, yeah, the overall message of the Matrix is how positive. I think the martial arts strand contains the real message. And you can see this actually in the last scene. Although we have lots of guns in the film, the final fight between Neo and Agent Smith. Agent Smith is using a gun, Neo isn't. And at the end, first Agent Smith shoots Neo full of bullets. Then he comes back to life. The next time he tries to shoot him, you see him like pulling the bullets out of the air. Okay. And I think that is the message. And the message is that basically your own power, the power of the mind, is more important than any other kind of power. Anyway, that's just my idea. Sure.
There were children, in the parents' house, and they know magic is fake. They realize that.
At an intuitive level, yes. They might not be consciously thinking that, but that's what they feel.
This is interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that whole thing about, the spoon.
They're still in Matrix.
Yeah. They're basically people in the Matrix who are starting to wake up.
They are not normal kids, like genius or something.
Yeah, I mean, they call them potentials, yeah. I mean, they're like Neo. I mean, they're people who are in the process of waking up. In fact, they've even got farther than Neo. I mean, Neo needed a lot of help to get out of the Matrix. These kids are still in the Matrix. But they've realized that the Matrix is an illusion. Particularly those kids, I mean, what kind of philosophies do they represent? Particularly the kid with the spoon, where he says there is no spoon.
Are teachers awake? They know what matrix is or not?
As I said, I think they know it at an intuitive level. They might not know about the machines or anything. Nobody might have told them that yet. They just feel very deep down that it is a fake, and that's why they can do those things. Yeah, that's all.
I think mind is important than anything. For the philosophers, of course, Plato or Kant. All of them think that mind is important than the body or anything. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a dualistic film, actually. So there is this kind of idea of the mind and the physical world as being two different things. Again, we'll see that in our next text. What the potentials really reminded me of, though, was Eastern philosophies like Hinduism and Buddhism, which explicitly say that the world is an illusion. They call it Maya in Sanskrit. And again, they see it as an illusion that we create collectively, which is exactly the same as what Morpheus talks about, a consensual hallucination. Something that we all at a very deep level, agree to believe is real. But from a Hindu or Buddhist point of view, it's not really real. Okay. Obviously, there are limits to it. There's a nice Zen Buddhist story about a student and a master, and the student has got into the idea that everything is real, is unreal. Sorry. And his master is asking about it. So what is it that is not real? And the student says, oh, the world is not real. We know this. We've learned this. So, yeah, even my body is real. The master said, well, what about your nose? Is your nose real? So he says, no, my nose is not real. So the Zen master punches him on the nose and says, okay, now tell me what hurts. Yeah. So in one sense, yeah, it's very easy to say, oh yeah, the world is an illusion, it's all unreal. But at the same time, the pain you feel when somebody punches in your nose is just as real, whether you're in the physical world or Matrix or the Buddhists are right and the world is an illusion. Pain is still real. Which gets back to what Morpheus was saying. You know, if reality is just what you can see and touch and feel, then it is nothing more than electrical signals sent by your brain. I mean, that's where it really starts getting tricky. Hey, any more questions or comments? Okay, okay, just